Greetings, Culture Warriors. I am Jeff Vieira, author of Culture is Everything, and this is another dispatch from the front. Today, I have heavy, terrible news to report. This is from The Street. The headline is General Electric selling its consumer lighting business. This is by Dan Wheel. Shares of General Electric rose Wednesday after the beleaguered industrial icon announced it was selling its almost 130-year-old consumer lighting business to Savant Systems, a smart home company. GE has been dumping assets for several years to shore up its weakened financial position. It's already sold its commercial lighting business in 2018. The company's finances have grown increasingly dire during the coronavirus pandemic because a downturn in Boeing's business has decimated its aviation division. That has led to thousands of layoffs in what was one of the few segments of the company that was performing well. As for the lighting sale, today's transaction is another important step in the transformation of GE into a more focused industrial company, GE CEO Larry Culp said in a statement. Our GE lighting colleagues will join a fast-growing leader in home automation that shares their passion for bringing the future to light. At GE, we will continue to advance the infrastructure technologies that are core to our company, the CEO added. Last month, GE reported weaker than expected first quarter earnings and warned that second quarter results would decline further amid a material hit from the global coronavirus pandemic. GE said adjusted earnings totaled 5 cents a share in the latest quarter, down 64.3% from the same period last year, 3 cents shy of the Wall Street consensus forecast. Revenue fell 8% to $20.5 billion. GE shares stood at 17 in market trading, up 5.44%. The stock has dropped 38% over the last 3 months and cratered 74% over the last 5 years. Okay. So let's just unpack this a little bit here. When you look at GE and you look at their logo that we fondly referred to as the meatball when I used to work at GE back in the late 90s. That logo, that company has always been associated with the light bulb. It's their most powerful link to their founding back by Thomas Edison back in the day. The founding myth of GE concerns Edison and all those trials he put in, 10,000 or more, into finally figuring out how to make an incandescent light bulb. It was Edison who really lit the night, triggered a major industrial revolution, and of course, electrified the world. So GE, kind of rightly, that's a pretty powerful image to hitch your wagon to, and they did. And so the last bastion of the company has always been that lighting. No matter how tough times could get from time to time, always held on to that. And it's a testament to just what a train wreck Jeff Immelt has made of that company, that here we are, and they're disassociating themselves from that. What the heck do they mean by an infrastructure company? You know, back when I worked for GE, the motto was, we bring good things to life. And it emphasized the fact that the company, with its far-flung arms there, was all about improving the lives of others. There really wasn't a lot that you could point to that GE wasn't involved in to some extent or other. But that was then and this is now. And I'll tell you, a large part of where GE went astray was when Immelt decided that he needed to cozy up to the government. Now, GE's always had contracts with the government. In their aviation business, they make jet engines. Some of those jet engines go into fighter aircraft. You don't get into fighter aircraft unless you have a contract with the government. So they've always had some interaction with that. But I bet you if you look at their portfolio, since Emelt's ascension, you'll see that they've gotten a lot deeper. Eco-Imagination. When that came out, a lot of my colleagues who were former GE employees and I had a good laugh. Eco-Imagination. What kind of pin-headed idiot came up with that nonsense? You go from something tangible that you can feel that GE produces. Their focus was always on concrete improvements to people's lives. And then you go to this gobbledygook that's government driven, and it means nothing. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody could tell you. And of course, once government subsidies start to dry up for that sort of stuff, what are you left with? It's not a viable business. You know, Jack Welch, who died recently, was famously critical of Emelt and the way he ran that business into the ground. They've had two CEOs since. John Flannery took over, and he didn't really have much of a chance. He was throwing things over the side as fast as he could to try and save what part of the business he could. This Larry Culp, I know nothing about him, but you know, he's in much the same position. But he's still spouting nonsense too. It's hard to see how you're going to shrink your way to prosperity, especially when you're a company like GE. But part of this problem, going back to the Welch era, was GE cultivated leaders who supposedly could run any business. They didn't need to know the business. They were just good at running businesses. So you could put them in, you know, you could send one over to Home Depot and he'd make Home Depot terrific. That didn't happen. You'd send someone over to 3M. That actually turned out fairly well. But you could plug these guys anywhere and they would be top notch. You know, GE was like an all-star team, right? And you take one person off the all-star team and you go send them somewhere and they would have tremendous success there. The reality was a bit different. And that arrogance, that Enron-style arrogance that unfortunately Welch managed to cultivate intentionally or unintentionally in his successors is what led to this point. Now, I don't think Larry Culp gives a fig about the people who work in the lighting business and the future they're going to have and yada, yada, yada. Don't think he cares about them at all. He's looking at an asset on a balance sheet. He wants to get rid of the asset while he can get some money for it. But that only tells you that the rest of their business is just cratered. Cratered. Nothing but bad road ahead for that company. And it's a shame because Welch had elevated that company, and it wasn't just smoke and mirrors and GE Capital and all that nonsense. He had elevated that company to something that you could be proud to work for in corporate America. It was one of the world's most admired companies for great reason. But over time, that culture slid off the rails. Saw some of the start of it while Welch was still in the seat, frankly, as people started trying to cook books to make their number instead of doing it the right way, and got away with it. But when Emelt took over and it became all about who you knew in the government, and Emelt, who was selected by Welch in large part because he was a smooth Ivy League guy and Welch wasn't. Welch's hands were dirty. He came up through the plants. And he unfortunately had a little too much respect for smooth Ivy League guys. Even though smooth Ivy League guys don't know a darn thing about what they're doing. And so that culture took a beating during Emelt's tenure. The business has gotten so bad, it's hard to see how the culture could have been turned around since. But what you see is it's just not the same company. This is because culture stems from leadership. So if you're not careful, if you put in place a successor who is not truly a true believer in the company's culture, they've spent their time, they bided their time, they bit their tongue, and all the while they're just thinking, if I get my shot, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to make this something I like. I'm going to have 2 company jets so that I never have to worry about one not being ready when I want to go somewhere. That's what I'm going to do. And that's exactly what email did. I'm going to go shake hands and attend these conferences with celebrity politicians. I'm going to be viewed as a mover and shaker in the U.S. economy. That's what I'm going to do. And that's what Jeff Immelt did. And GE, years after he's gone, is still paying the price for this. The leaders since haven't exactly covered themselves in glory digging out of the hole either. But what we're seeing is the long, slow decline of what was a great, great company back in the day. And frankly, I'm just glad the Welch isn't here to see it, because it would absolutely break his heart. Something to think about today as we consider culture and we consider this ever-changing financial landscape. Keep an eye on the leadership, because as the leadership goes, so goes the culture. And while leaders may come and go, culture is everything. Thank you. Have a great day.